you're in the video. All right, guys. So thank you for joining. This is a show called In It Together. It's hosted by Sammy, a licensed counselor, and myself. We do this show every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and we bring the show to you so that we can discuss coping with emotional, social, and psychological well-being while promoting self-healing. So thank you guys so much for coming today. I would like to let you guys know that we'll acknowledge all comments during the Q&A in the show. And we do have something really special at the end of the show. We have a video actually of a lot of you guys dancing, which is super cool. It's in response to last week's card. So before we get into this week's show, I'm going to have Emoji J jump in the box. And to make the viewers the view of the intro easier for you, tap the screen and get rid of the comments because we're trying something new today.
Invincible. If you let your guard down, I'm not gonna let you fall. Hold on to me now, I'm not invincible. Drowning in self-doubt, can you pull my demons out?
Emoji J, thank you. I'm always really excited when I see that intro. He does such a good job. If you guys don't already have Emoji J favorited, hit him with a favorite. He's going to put his YouTube channel in the comments here shortly. He actually records most of the shows on Meet Me. So make sure you guys find him on YouTube, subscribe, and you can rewatch any of the show, well, most of the shows on Meet Me if you've missed them. So guys, if you're just joining, this is In It Together. This is a show that me and my friend and licensed counselor Sammy J host every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We decided to do this show so that we could discuss coping with emotional, social, and psychological well-being to promote self-healing. And I'm so excited for today's show. I would recommend to you guys to get a paper and a pen so that you can write down some notes and questions that you have so we can answer them at the end of the show. We're talking about boundaries today, which is so exciting because I struggle with boundaries in my life, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. So if you guys are looking on ways to improve your boundaries within all of your relationships in your life, this is the place to be. So before I have Sammy get in the box and we dig in here, I do a question every week on Instagram. If you follow our Instagram, I'm sure someone will post it down here. It's in my bio. The Instagram is inittogether_meetme. We post a question every week in regard to the topic we cover. It's a really good way to make our content super personal because you guys are the ones answering it. And it also gives you a chance to be a guest on the show. So if you guys are ever interested in participating in the show in any way, make sure you keep an eye out for our questions on our Instagram story. All right, guys, so I'm going to start with our first question I asked on Instagram. The first question was a poll question. Do you have healthy boundaries or unhealthy boundaries? So 62% of my followers said that they think they have healthy boundaries versus the 38% that said they had unhealthy boundaries. The next question I asked you guys is an open-ended question. I asked you guys, where do you struggle with boundaries in your life? What part of your life what part of your life do you struggle with boundaries the most? So here are some of the answers you guys gave us. Letting people use me for my good heart. Family, boundaries within your family. Letting people in, work and personal boundaries, boundaries within friendships and romantic relationships. And then I think for myself, the hardest part is saying no. I get scared that I'll upset someone. And I understand that because I'm the same way. I'm a people pleaser, and that's why we're doing the show, guys, so that we can all hopefully improve our relationships, personal, work, and romantic. So, guys, without further ado, oh, and also just to remind you, if you're just joining, we do have a really awesome video at the end of the show. It was a response to a tarot card I'll share with you later, and it's actually a lot of you guys dancing, which is so, so cool. So make sure you guys stick around for the end of the show. Alrighty, guys, here is Sammy J. She's my co-host, a good friend of mine, a fun live streamer. Oh, and she's also like the whole stream.
Too big.
Let me, wow, I'm so not, the big box always gives me anxiety. Okay, cool.
That's better.
Hi, Sammy. Holy moly, everybody really just got to know you there.
Up and close and personal.
So, guys,
hi, everybody.
Sammy is my co-host. She's a licensed mental health counselor, and she's going to be a really great resource for you guys. So make sure you hit her with a favorite. Check out her live streams. But Sammy, so we got into this. I'm going to just head back to it. 62% of people said they had healthy boundaries versus 38%. How do you feel about that?
So you guys know me. I told you during the first episode that I'm a huge stats nerd. Not doing stats, just I like learning about stats. But I couldn't really find anything to like prove this one way or the other. I'm lagging. So can you guys see me, or am I just lagging?
I hear you fine, but you are lagging a little bit.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't know if it was the gifts or the hearts. So I couldn't find anything to support it. My suggestion to you guys would be to say, okay, if I answered that question, let me see what she has to say, and let me reevaluate at the end. My guess is we're going to get into it. There is a lot of different kinds of boundaries. So I think some people might be correct that they have healthy boundaries in one area, but maybe not so much every area. So let's check it out and see what you guys think at the end of this. Maybe everybody can kind of touch base at the end and say, oh, maybe I was wrong, or no, I was right, I got this.
Definitely. So guys, I would suggest if you have a notebook and a pen, I would highly suggest you grabbing that, because this is a lot of information we're going to cover, but it's a lot of beneficial information that I think you guys should really apply to your daily lives to help improve
relationships
in different situations with different types of people. So Sammy, what are boundaries exactly?
Okay,
let me go back here. I don't want to keep showing you guys that.
Again, all kinds of different boundaries, but essentially, in a nutshell, boundaries are the limits and rules that we set for ourselves that are based on our values. They help us to get towards the goals that we have for ourselves within our life. So they help us navigate situations, and they're unique to each person. So some of you might say, well, my boundaries are like really similar to my friends or my family. But again, once we look at all these different kinds of boundaries, you might say, oh, okay, we're similar here, but we're really different over here. So similar in some ways to other people, but overall, the big part of it is very unique to each person. So when we're discussing boundaries, we really, like when you're trying to discuss your boundaries with people, you really want to focus on what kind of language you're using. So a big thing we talk about is using I language instead of you language. So an I statement is, I feel blank because of blank. And in the future, I need you to blank. So an example might be, I feel scared when you raise your voice when we're arguing, and in the future, could you try to talk in a regular tone of voice, a regular conversation voice? So that would be an I statement. So when you're presenting your boundaries to people, these are the kinds of conversations you want to have. Because of this thing, I need this kind of boundary, so that we're not feeling like we're blaming people for things. Mm-hmm. Also, we want to make sure our statements when we are setting our boundaries are very, very clear. And remembering that you have the right to say no. That's a huge part of boundaries, is just comfort with saying no and hearing no. So many people are uncomfortable with the word no, whether it's being said to them or it's coming out of their own mouth.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, it's a huge one. You also want to be confident with your body language. Because if you're coming in, you're saying something, but you're very maybe kind of shy and meek in your body language, people may not take you seriously. So you definitely want to communicate your body language right. I want to say, like, I forget what the exact stat is on that. Like 70% of language is body language. So it's a huge.
Oh yeah,
part.
it's huge.
Yeah. You also want to be respectful with your language. So you're not yelling at somebody, you're not being passive aggressive, that kind of stuff. Planning your message ahead of time can be really helpful in making sure that you're confident. And after hearing what the other person says back to you, sometimes it's okay for you to decide to compromise your boundary a little bit, but you never have to compromise your boundary too. You got to keep that in mind. And then the last part of setting boundaries is it's important to set a consequence. So to say to somebody, this is my boundary, and if you don't respect that, I'm going to do this, as kind of to make sure that it happens, because boundaries are all about making sure you feel safe and secure, and again, get to those goals that you want to get to.
So Sammy, I just want to see if we can clarify this. So the word consequence sounds really negative.
Yeah.
When I think of a consequence, I think of a bad thing, like doing something out of spite.
Yeah.
That is not what we're talking about here when you use the word consequence.
No, we never want the consequence to be, well, I'm mad at you because you broke my boundary, so I'm going to do this to get back at you. That is not what we're talking about. So in the I statement, we were talking about, I feel scared when you raise your voice when we're arguing, and in the future, could you try to talk in a regular conversation voice? So if you ask for that boundary and that boundary is not respected, it's okay for you to say, you know, if you don't do that, that in the future, I'm gonna go in a separate room until you calm down. I'm gonna go for a ride in my car. I'm gonna go for a walk around the block, whatever, until you calm down and I calm down, and we can then have this conversation again. Again, it's not to get back at that person. It's to just hold that boundary.
All right, cool, definitely. Ooh, guys, if you're just joining, this is In It Together. This is a show that Sammy J and I do every week, every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Right now we're talking about boundaries, and Sammy just went over what personal boundaries are. And now, like I said, pen and paper, y'all. There's a lot into boundaries, way more than I thought. So Sammy's gonna actually tell us about 6 different types of boundaries that exist, which I had no idea there were so many.
That's a lot. Yeah. Okay, guys. So there's 6 general boundaries. There could be arguments made that maybe there are more, but overall, we're going to say there's 6. So the first one, most of you will probably point out, is physical, right? So big picture is like walls, fences, those kinds of things. But we're talking personal, so physical boundaries as far as physical touch and privacy, personal space, right? So if I don't like to be tickled, I can set a boundary around that. If I don't want somebody coming in my room and snooping through my things, like, I have the right to say, please don't go through my things. Those are physical boundaries. They're kind of outside of ourselves. So then next we have intellectual boundaries. So intellectual is thoughts, right? So we want to respect thoughts that people have. And I think, especially on this app, we can all identify that sometimes that gets pushed a little bit. And just in life in general. I bring up the app just because we're all here and we know how that works.
Yeah.
But we don't have to agree with what other people think, but we should never belittle their thoughts. So we have the right to think what we want, even if somebody else doesn't agree with it. The third one is emotional boundaries, so your feelings, right? And it's kind of the same thing as intellectual boundaries, as far as everybody has the right to feel their feelings, and nobody has the right to belittle your feelings. Even, again, if you feel like they're blowing this way out of proportion, keep it to yourself. They're feeling the way they're feeling, and that is okay. Mm-hmm. It's also when and where to share your feelings. So knowing who you should be sharing information to, right? So if I go to the doctor's office, I need to tell my doctor about my symptoms, but I don't need to tell the person in the waiting room that's sitting there next to me about my symptoms. So knowing the appropriate times to share things. Number 4 is sexual. So this is a big one. Consent, right? That's the big word here. But along with sexual, within sexual is emotional, physical, and intellectual during a sexual experience. So respecting people's feelings during a sexual experience, thoughts, and what they do and do not want done to them physically. So that's sexual. Number 5 is material. So that is money or possessions. So we have the right to not have things stolen, damaged, or to be pressured into sharing our possessions, right? So maybe somebody asks to borrow our car. If it's a friend or a family member, depending on who it is, we might say, okay. But if it's a stranger walking down the street, we might be like, no. And maybe there are certain family or friends that you don't feel comfortable saying that to, and they don't have the right to pressure you into making you share that item. And then the last one is time, which is a big one. And this is where I think a lot of people slack with their boundaries. Because again, that no word, right? So it is really important to set aside time for life. If you are not setting aside this time, you're not going to accomplish the goals that you want in life. So that is a huge thing. We need to look out for people that are demanding too much of our time. And that's really where we need to concentrate some boundaries.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. Yeah, guys. So if you're just joining, this is In It Together with Sammy and Gabby. I'm Gabby. This is Sammy in the box with me. She's a licensed mental health counselor. And right now we're talking about boundaries. Sammy just went over the 6 different types of boundaries. If you're just coming in, don't worry, because I'm going to recap the 6 for you real quick before we step into the next part of the boundary topic. So there are 6 types, just to give you a quick recap. The first boundary is physical. That's like physical touch, my bubble, my bedroom, my space. Yep. The second boundary is intellectual. These are your thoughts and your opinions. If someone were to belittle you, they would be breaking that boundary. The third is emotional. This is very similar to the intellectual boundary. If you're feeling some type of way, it's because you are feeling some type of way, and it's not right for someone to belittle you for feeling the way that you feel, because it's valid. The fourth type of boundary is a sexual boundary. This really should be quite obvious, I hope, to everyone. You need consent. Enough said there. The fifth boundary is a material boundary. This is your belongings, your money. If someone steals from you, tries to convince you when you don't want to let them borrow something, or damages your items, that is breaking a material boundary. And the last boundary is time. If somebody is taking up so much of your time that it's disrupting other parts of your life, your career, your family, your relationship, whatever, that is a time boundary that they are breaking.
Absolutely.
So
you got
it. Woo, all right. I have to study for this one, for real. I didn't realize how little I knew about boundaries, but there's more. Don't you worry. Like I said, grab that pen and that pencil. That pen and that pencil.
Give it a break
and a
for
notebook.
a second. Let's get going.
All right. So now we're going to talk about the 3 characteristics of boundaries.
Yes. So we have each of these different types of boundaries, right? But within them, we have characteristics of each one. So there is 3 characteristics. There are healthy boundaries, there are porous boundaries, and there are rigid boundaries. So it's kind of like a spectrum. So we have porous over here, we have rigid over here, and then healthy is in the middle. And I'll kind of go into how it might ebb and flow a little bit depending on each kind of boundary. But essentially, a rigid boundary is our standoffish people, right? So there are people that are avoiding close relationships. They're unlikely to ask for help. They have few close relationships. They're protective of their personal information. They may seem detached. Even if they do manage to be in a romantic relationship, they're still really detached. They're not sharing a whole lot of themselves. And then they keep others at a distance to avoid the possibility of rejection. So that fear of that no keeps them really, really far away from a lot of people. So that's on that end. And then on this other end over here, we have porous boundary people. So they overshare. There are oversharers. They don't say no. There are yes men. They're over involved with other people's problems. They know everybody's business, and they got hands in all of it. They're dependent on the opinions of others, cannot make a decision. I know I'm guilty of that one right there. I really struggle with making decisions. Gabby knows.
We both do. It's a great system we have here.
Except they're also, unfortunately, very accepting of abuse or disrespect from other people, because they're scared that if they speak up for themselves, that they will get rejected even more. So they just let it happen. And then they fear rejection if they don't comply with other people. So that kind of goes along with that same thing. So those are the two ends. In the middle, though, we have people that value their own opinions. They don't compromise values for others, maybe on occasion, but rarely. They share personal information in an appropriate way. So again, it's okay to share certain things with my doctor, but not the person in the waiting room. They don't overshare, but they also don't undershare. They know what they want and they need, and they can communicate that to people. So there's no guessing with these people about what's going to happen in a situation. They're going to make it very clear. And they also accept when others say no to them. They're okay with hearing that word no because they respect people's boundaries as well. So they're comfortable with hearing that word no and knowing that it's not about them, it's about the other person.
Wow, so there you have it, folks. There are 3 characteristics of boundaries and 6 types officially at this time.
Yes,
wow.
Yes.
So guys, if you're just joining, this is In It Together with Sammy and Gabby. I'm Gabby. Sammy's in the box with me. She's a licensed mental health counselor. We do this show every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. It's a show where we talk about coping with emotional, social, and psychological well-being to promote self-healing. Today we're talking about boundaries, and I'm going to just recap for you what you may have missed. We talked about the 6 types, and now we just introduced the 3 characteristics, which are rigid, porous, and healthy. So just like Sammy said, there's a spectrum. So the rigid people are those who are real standoffish. They're really closed off in relationships. I feel like they avoid a lot of things.
Yes.
And then on the other side of the spectrum is the porous type of people, which I will admit I am very much this kind of a person, and I'm trying to work on it, clearly, which is why we're doing the show. So the porous people are your people pleasers. They're afraid to say no. They're afraid to hear no. They overshare. I'm sure if you guys come to my live stream, you know I'm this one. But then right in the middle where we should be are the healthy boundaries. Those are the people who are confident in what they want. They're not afraid to say no. They're not afraid to hear no. And you know, they're very confident and not afraid to say what they need to feel respected as far as their boundaries go. So did I miss anything?
No, I think you got it. And I think, the other important part to remember that I didn't totally touch on was, so remember, within each boundary, I might be one way. And in another boundary, I might be another way. So maybe with my physical touch, I'm very rigid. Don't touch me. But when it comes to my material possessions, I might be really porous. Here, take whatever you need. So it doesn't always look the same within each type of boundary.
Right.
And situations too, right?
Right, definitely. Situations, and even like where you're at, like your boundaries at work wouldn't be the same as your boundaries with like your family hanging out in the living room.
Absolutely. I might be really rigid at work, and that might be necessary because sometimes that's important to keep healthy work relationships, is to be a little bit more rigid and a little more closed off. But then at home, it's okay to be maybe a little bit more porous with the people that you love.
Right. So that being said, healthy boundaries are obviously healthy boundaries as we describe them, but it's okay depending on the people you're around, the situation, and where the setting is. If you go a little bit into the porous boundary or into the rigid boundary, that's appropriate. So it's not necessarily unhealthy to be in either spectrum.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, Joel down there made a great comment as far as if people in your life get upset about your boundaries, it just shows you that the boundary is needed. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Well, guys, if you're just joining, this is In It Together with Gabby and Sammy. I'm Gabby. This is Sammy. She's a licensed mental health counselor. We do the show every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Right now, we're talking about boundaries. We dug in a little bit into what boundaries are, the different types, the different characteristics, and now we're going to have a situational discussion.
This is gonna be fun,
A
guys.
situational
You all better
discussion.
been listening. We're testing you.
I hope you got your notes written down, guys. It's an open book test. So as long as you paid attention, then you guys should do really well. This is the part where we get to look at your comments. So the first situational discussion is going to be mostly me as an example. Sammy's going to give me a situation, and then I'm going to discuss what I would do if I had a healthy boundary, a porous boundary, or a rigid boundary.
Yes. And then the second situation, we're going to give you guys options. And in the third situation, you guys are going to give us examples of responses. So, you ready for this, Gabby?
I'm ready.
All right. So first one, Gabby is giving me the answers. Okay, guys? So just sit back, relax, and watch how this goes. So the first situation is your roommate has been eating your food. You never discuss sharing, and you don't want them to continue. What would a rigid boundary look like in that situation?
So if I were setting rigid boundaries in that situation where I found my friend eating my food out of our shared fridge, I would probably not really want to even have the conversation. Perhaps I would buy a mini fridge and even take it to that extent, and just to avoid the conflict, because I really, I'd rather just avoid the situation completely rather than have a conversation about it.
Yeah, that would definitely be a rigid boundary. Push you away further. Don't talk about things.
Mm-hmm.
Porous boundary. What would be an example of a porous boundary?
All right. Like I said, I am like, unfortunately, the porous boundary queen, I guess, tonight. So if I had a porous boundary, I found that my food was missing, so my roommate was taking it, I would be very afraid to even bring the conversation up. Very similar to the rigid boundary. But when I do bring it up, I might get real emotional. I might start oversharing about my finances, my medical problems. I feel like the poorest people are just oversharers, and and they're also afraid to hear no. So it's like, man, I don't want to bring this up. I hope you're not mad at me for bringing this up. That's the lack of confidence that those poorest types of boundaries have.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so what would a healthy boundary conversation look like?
Okay, so a healthy boundary in this situation, I would approach my roommate and say, hey, I noticed that you've been eating some of my food. I know we never really talked about it, but I'd like to keep our food separated. But if you would like anything in the future, just ask.
Absolutely. You got it. For sure. All right, guys.
Your turn.
Big claps for Gabby. She is learning quickly. It's you guys' turn. I hope you are paying attention. So I'm going to give the situation, and then I'm
going to pull a boundary example out of my butt.
Yes, that's
pretty much is what we're doing.
I was confused there for a second because I don't have the answers written.
No, because I'm
going to give the situation. Gabby's going to just give a response, and you guys are going to say porous, rigid, or healthy. Okay?
You guys ready?
Everybody ready? All right. So the situation is your friend calls you at 11 o'clock at night to discuss issues she's having with her boyfriend. You need to wake up at 6 a.m. So what is one possible reaction?
Wow. It's 11 o'clock at night. I have to get up. I had a really long day. I'm just going to tell her, listen, this is not the time. I'm just going to hang up the phone and go to sleep.
Okay. So do you guys think that was rigid, porous, or healthy? Ryan with the rigid, rigid.
All right. You guys, look at you. I knew you guys were taking notes with us.
A+ for everybody.
The rest should be, except for Mike, the rest of this should be really easy because the other answers are either going to be healthy or porous now.
Process of elimination here, guys.
Yeah. So let's just paint the picture for me again. What is the situation?
The situation is Your friend calls at 11 o'clock at night to discuss issues she is having with her boyfriend. You need to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, though.
Okay, so my reaction is, oh man, she's really going through a hard time right now. But I don't want to tell her that I need to sleep. I don't want to tell her no. What if she gets mad at me? Oh my gosh. I guess I'll just stay on the phone with her all night. I don't need to go to sleep.
All right, is that porous or healthy? Yeah.
You guys are so smart. What fast learners.
A++ for everyone.
Okay, and then the healthy.
Except for Mike again.
So the healthy boundary response to the situation would be, hey, I hear you. I know you're hurt right now, but I do have to get up in a few hours. How about we discuss this tomorrow in the afternoon? That would be a healthy response to that situation.
Absolutely.
You're still being there for your friend, but you're not sacrificing, and you're not being too standoffish, even though you have other things that you have to worry about in your life.
Absolutely, yeah. Sorry, my eyeballs are watering.
Are you just crying because everybody was just?
I'm just
so proud of everybody
absorbing this information. Just brings a tear to my eye.
Guys, if you're just joining, this is In It Together with Gabby and Sammy. Right now we're having a situational discussion about boundaries. This is actually you guys, your turn once again in the audience. She's going to give you a situation, and then you guys are going to respond with whatever she asks you, porous, healthy, or rigid. So,
all right, guys, let's see how you do. This is the real test. That was like the easy part. I need to see some good responses right now. So the situation is you've been dealing with medical issues and you missed weekly game night at the past 2 weeks with your friends. Your friends ask what's been wrong, but you want to keep it personal. So what would a rigid response to that look like?
And in this situation, you are at the game night right now with your other friends for the first time in 2 weeks. It's none of your business. That's rigid. Definitely.
Yep. Absolutely.
Tell them it's not their business. Yeah, right on the money, y'all. That's a rigid response for sure.
You guys got this.
Don't worry about it. All right, you guys got it. So how about a porous boundary example?
Yes.
So a porous boundary response to you're at a game night you missed for the past 2 weeks because of medical issues. Your friend says, "Hey man, what's going on? I haven't seen you in 2 weeks." And you're in the setting where you're in front of all your other friends. You want to keep it personal. What's a porous boundary response?
Tell them where I'm bleeding from. Good job, Thunder. That would work. That would be porous.
I mean, yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, you guys in a way are giving the answer. No, you're not so straightforward.
So operations the whole bar. Yeah.
I have things going on and I'd rather not talk about what's going on. Okay, thanks. That's porous. So
0, that might actually be more of a healthy response.
Yeah, I agree. So Sammy, what do you think the healthy response to this would be, or do you want me to answer it? Or the porous response?
I want to see how you do with this.
The porous response, if I were in the situation, the porous response would be to overshare, which a lot of you guys said, a lot of different examples. I loved seeing all the examples. But yeah, there's people who overshare. That's definitely a porous boundary. So then the next thing we need from you is a healthy boundary, which some of you guys answered already, actually. The healthy boundary. You don't want to share your personal information with your friends. How would you respond?
Talk to you when I'm ready. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for being there for me. I appreciate you guys. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Acknowledging that you're like, hey, I know that you're here for me. I know you're my friend. I know you're here to help me. But this is something I don't want to talk about right now. But if the time comes where I would like to talk to you about it, I'll tell you and I'll give you a call or I'll text you.
Absolutely.
So that would be the healthy response in that situation. Wow.
You guys, it's so great. I wasn't sure what to expect from you guys.
I know. I was wondering how it was going to go. That was awesome. You guys are so awesome. Well, thank you guys for being here and paying attention and writing your notes in your notebook. This is In It Together with Gabby and Sammy. I'm Gabby. This is Sammy.
I'm Sammy.
She's Sammy. She's a licensed counselor and the co-host of In It Together. So before we close up this section, as we do have a guest, is there anything else you'd like to add, Sammy, about boundaries that we may have missed, or you'd like to, maybe make?
So
No?
we throw a lot at you guys, and it seems like you guys are like little sponges, porous joke sponges. Soaked it all up. Yeah, I'm super impressed. I'm sure you guys have questions, so I'm gonna get out of the box. We're gonna let our guest in, and then I'm gonna come back in. I'm gonna answer questions, and then we're gonna get to that fun video. So stick around, don't leave, guys.
Yeah, at the end of the show, we have a fun video that's in response to these tarot cards I do every week. We'll get into detail with that soon, but it's a really fun video. A lot of you participated in, and it's such a really positive way to end the show. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
All right, Sammy, you can leave the box.
Alrighty.
The guest for tonight can request the box, guys. If you're in my stream, you know this guest super well. Even if you don't come to my stream, there's a really good chance you probably know her. She's a top badge. She's my cousin. She's Ash Marie. Ash,
hi.
Well, welcome. Thank you for being a guest on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Hi, Donnie.
So, guys, Ash actually responded to the Instagram question that we had about what part of life is do you struggle with boundaries? So, I'm like looking for something. It's not in front of me. So, Ash, so I'm gonna ask you the Instagram question. What do you struggle with boundaries the most? What part of your life do you struggle with boundaries?
So the way I answered that was saying no to people. So just in general in my life, just saying no to someone, whether it's like somebody off Meet Me or friends, family, is hard for me just because I don't want to upset them, even if I don't want to do it. So I happen to I usually like replace the word no with like, and it's not healthy. I usually replace the word no with like, I'll let you know, or maybe, or I'll get back to you. But even if I don't want to do it, and I know I don't want to do it, it's really unhealthy.
Oh man, I literally relate to you so much on that. So Ash, again, thank you for being here. If you guys don't know Ash, she's an amazing person. Please hit her with a favorite. Ash, thank you again for being on the show, because I know what we're going to talk about is a little personal. It's a little porous.
Yeah.
But it's something it's something I know that you've spoken about on your live before, which is why I asked if you were okay with talking about it here.
Yeah.
Was there a time in your life where you found that your boundaries were unhealthy, and since then you've improved on them?
Okay, so actually now listening to Sammy talk, so I think it all really goes back to my relationship I have 3 daughters. I was with their dad for over 8 years, and I honestly think all my boundaries were broke with him. He was very emotionally, physically, and mentally abusive. So I feel like being with someone like that, you were scared to say no because you didn't really know the outcome. Like, they asked you to do something, it had to be a yes. You know what I'm saying? So it became really hard. I think I just got used to it. I thought it was normal. So even leaving him in 2017, I've been single since, and like building myself, it's still with me today. But when you're with somebody like that, they break all the boundaries. You don't even realize it, and it's sad actually. It really breaks down a person. And so yeah.
Definitely. So since that happened to you and you left that situation, you realized at that point that there needs to be boundaries set in your future relationships.
Yes, absolutely. Oh yeah, absolutely. I do realize, but I feel like at this point, I don't think people realize how breaking boundaries can affect somebody, because still even it's still hard for me. So like being in a relationship, for example, I'll give an example. Like, actually, so one thing that Sammy said that I didn't notice is like the sexual, like touch. And I don't know who can like agree. I wasn't gonna bring this up, but like I have to now. So I feel like this might go with it, but it might not. I don't know if you've ever been with somebody that maybe wanted to be intimate at that moment and you didn't want to, but they still, like, the words they said manipulated you to do that and like break your boundaries.
I know that happens. Yeah, that's definitely part of it.
Yeah, my ex did that to me a lot. There were so many times I didn't even want to be near him, but he was so manipulative that he broke my boundaries and made me do it. So that hit me hard tonight. Yeah, it still kind of lives with me now. I have like a really big fear of saying no to people, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's actually meeting people. It's hard for me to just say no. You know, I don't want to do it. You know, or I don't like it or whatever, because I'm scared of hurting people's feelings. I'm scared of upsetting somebody. I'm scared of somebody thinking different of me just because I don't want to do something. And I know it reverts back to my relationship, which is actually very sad. But yeah, so it's really, really hard, you know.
Wow. Yeah, I relate in some ways to your experience. Wow. Well, I do have to say, knowing you in person and knowing you all of my life, I don't know if you're giving yourself enough credit, but you've really grown tremendously as a woman since you've left that toxic relationship. And seriously, I'm not even kidding.
Absolutely.
Even now, right. I mean, I would say that you are more likely to put boundaries into place now versus when you were then. So I think that you've improved at least.
And the thing is, though, is I didn't mean to cut you off. It's like Gabby and Lexi seen me firsthand in that relationship. Mm-hmm. I mean, they seen me be manipulated. They've seen me be hit physically, like literally. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So I'm proud of myself where I'm at now. I still feel like boundaries is something I got to work on, but I do have to say though, and I know this might be your next question, but I'm just gonna go off and say it. Having the family I do, Gabby and Lexi and my mom and my dad and everybody, has made it so much easier. It's not sometimes it's hard to say no to Lexi or like my family because I don't want to upset them, but like they are so understanding. So if I say no to them, they understand, you know what I'm saying? They have my back no matter what I choose. And that has always helped me. They've always, even through that relationship, like you see somebody in an abusive relationship, they could cut me off, and they always had my back, and they knew I'd eventually get out of it and grow. And it I don't know, I love it. You know what I'm saying? So it's nice to always have people around you. I feel like, okay, so I left him in 2017, and I had to bring this up. I left him in July of 2000, or like I don't know, like 2017. I joined the app in 2018, and Meet Me has changed my life. I love Meet Me, and I know I don't care what no one says. I've been streaming since 2000. I've met the most amazing people on this app. I've grown relationships, and even though I might not be in everybody's live stream or like constantly talking to them off the app because I'm a mom, I have a life, I love every single person I've experienced on this app, even if we're close or not. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have people in my life right now, like, for example, like I got Jason, I have Cody. Like, I tell Jason everything. Jason is literally my person I turn to when I need something. He is always there for me. And it's nice to have people like that, you know what I'm saying? And we've never even met in person, but like no matter what it is, he's there for me. It could be the dumbest thing ever. It could be the littlest thing. And it does help. It helps a lot, you know what I'm saying? So it's nice. I'm sorry. I had to speak up on my Meet Me friends.
No, do it. Listen, I love that. Listen, me personally, I think this app has really even helped me. Even in, I mean, my confidence in general, which then actually has helped me with creating boundaries. Although I do struggle with saying no and hearing no. So I definitely get you there. We're definitely the classic porous boundary characteristic. But Ash. Do you have any questions for Sammy?
Well, I guess, okay, this might be a hard one, Sammy. I'm just gonna leave you with this. What can instead of saying, this is the only question I have, instead of saying answers like, I'll let you know, or maybe, or I don't know, what can I do if I mean, I want to just tell people no. What's a better, healthier way to tell people no than just like, Okay, like I said, my worst thing is saying things like, I'll let you know, okay, I'll try, even though I know I don't want to. What's the best way to handle that?
I understand that. All right, Ash. Well, thank you
So
so
that
much
would be
for,
my best.
Yeah, I'm curious to know the answer as well. So thank you, Ash, for joining us. Guys, if you don't know Ash Marie, I don't know why you don't know her, but you should favorite her. She's a top badge. She streams every day, usually at night. I'll leave you with that. Ash, thank you so much for being a guest. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. No, this was amazing. Thank you. I appreciate y'all. All right, do you want me to exit myself or do you want to exit me?
Yes,
I'll exit
please
myself.
do that because I will probably
Okay, I
end the
love you
entire
guys.
stream.
Jason, Cody, I love you. Gabby, I love you. Lexi, I love you. Chris, I love you. I love you all.
I love you, Ash. Guys, if you're just joining, this is In It Together with Sammy and Gabby. I am Gabby. Sammy is about to rejoin us in the box. She is a licensed mental health counselor and our co-host. Sammy, hello, welcome back. Welcome back, welcome back. So let's see, Ash's question for you.
Yeah, Ash, phenomenal answers. Thank you so much for sharing that story with us. I know it's not easy, especially to talk about yourself and your wounds, and we appreciate you doing that. I'm sure that helped
Definitely
more people in here than you know. So for Ash's question, that's a tough one, because ultimately the answer is you have to just get comfortable saying no, whether it's practice saying it in the mirror, practice saying it, like you said, to the people that you know you can say it to. But yeah, you can explain to people, because again, what we were talking about before, right? The people that love and care about you will accept your boundaries. And if somebody is pushing you, we have to kind of reevaluate and say, do they care about us? Or are they a person that needs to work on their own boundaries as well? So we really, really do need to have that no in order to help them be okay with boundaries. So it's okay to say, I can't do this because X, Y, and Z. It's generally probably not because you don't care about them or you don't love them. It's you're a single mom, like you said, you have a lot going on in your life. I'm sure there are legitimate reasons why you can't do what somebody is asking you to do. And sometimes it's okay to, even if it's not like a time thing or something like that, it's just like an energy thing. Like, I just don't have the energy to do that. It's okay to be honest with people and say, I'm just really drained right now. And I can't do that today. Maybe try me again another time, but today it's a no for me. But the biggest thing is just being okay with that word no. No is not a bad word. So yeah, say it in front of a mirror, hear yourself say it, be comfortable with that.
Yeah, and this, I don't know if this is really related to anything, but I have problems with self-confidence personally, and I have tried to take the initiative to be nicer to myself, say like say like, you're beautiful, you're a good live streamer, you're a good friend, you're a good family member, you know what I mean? Like, self-affirmation, I feel like, is one good step to being confident, to saying, this is what I want or this is what I don't want. And I find that I still struggle with it, but I'm working on it, and that's why we're doing the show. But I find that starting with your own self-confidence could really benefit you with your boundaries, in my opinion, at least in my experience.
Yeah, remember what we talked about at the beginning, right? Having confident body language, that all goes into, if I have confident body language, I'm probably confident in what I'm about to say as well. So it all goes kind of hand in hand together.
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
I did want to touch base too about what Ash was saying as far as the sexual piece that she was talking about. I really wanted to touch on the fact that it's probably less the physical manipulation, but it's more the intellectual manipulation. So they're working on your thought boundaries, probably in that situation. So I just kind of wanted to touch and clarify on that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. That boundary has a lot of depth to it, for sure. Well, guys, we are nearing the end of our show. This is In It Together with Sammy and Gabby. I am Gabby. This is Sammy. She's a licensed mental health counselor. We do this show every week on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We brought this show to you so that we can talk about coping with emotional, social, and psychological well-being to promote self-healing. We just got done talking about boundaries, and unless there's anything else you want to add, then I'm going to go to the closing of the show here. Actually, you know
Are
what?
we doing question and answer?
Questions. Yeah. Questions and answers. Sorry about that.
Gabby's like, I'm done.
I was like, yeah, we don't need to hear you.
No, we just want to see the fun video because it's so much fun.
I know, it is so much fun. Stay tuned for that. It'll be happening very shortly here. But do any of you guys have any questions about boundaries you'd like to ask
They're
Sammy?
starting to roll in, it looks like. Hot Tub started with any good books about boundaries. Am I allowed to
Yeah,
say
you can do
that?
it. We're going to put it on the Instagram.
Perfect.
Actually.
Yeah. Actually, this is how when Gabby and I met about this show, I brought this up at the end. So there is a book called, it's literally just called Boundaries. Boundaries. It has a pencil on the front cover drawing, and it is by Cloud and Townsend. It really does an excellent job of having each chapter about a different kind of boundary, and giving real life examples of what people have done, how their boundary was broken and what they did in order to set a stronger boundary with it. So I highly recommend that book.
Super cool. That book, along with all the resources we use today, will be on our Instagram tomorrow because we have another great show after us at 10 p.m. Blake Premier has a show. Never mind, it's not Thursday.
No, it's not Thursday anymore. It's Tuesday.
Just kidding. At 10 o'clock today, it's actually Charisma Davis who has a show. So make sure you check her out. Man, I'm done confusing the
Blake
days
is on
of the week.
Thursday at 10 if you guys are interested in Love Quest.
If you are interested in Love Quest, definitely tune in on Thursdays. Man, I've been so messed up this week having to change the date and time of the show. I'll be back. I'll be back in my groove next week.
Easy did say is meet me good or bad for your mental health given all the trash on here. So I can't comment on that from a professional standpoint because nobody's done a study on this, so I'm not really going to comment on that one. I think that's up to each person to decide individually for themselves.
In a future show, but we haven't planned it yet, we're going to be talking about social media and the effects it can have on your mental health. So maybe we'll be able to answer your questions a little bit during that show.
Ryan has two-part question.
Ooh.
1, what steps can I take to have healthy characteristics in any boundary? And 2, we're not going to address that question, Ryan. He's messing with me. Healthy characteristics in any boundary, how to promote that. So I guess the first step is like figuring out where do you fall on the scale? Are you more porous? Are you more rigid? To decide kind of which way you need to go to get closer to healthy. So yeah, I think if you know where you fall, so if it's I'm really an oversharer, then your goals need to be around not saying so much to people about personal information, finding other conversations to talk about. So that's kind of a hard one to answer without knowing more information.
Yeah, that's true. Let's see. So Jen says I'm self-conscious about the way I look. So Jen, unfortunately, we're going to answer questions that are regarding to boundaries today, but in the future, that might be a topic we talk about. So make sure you have us both favorited and you join us every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern time.
Oh, Chris is giving me a hard one.
How can I be healthy at work when my boss or my supervisors don't respect my boundaries? Oh yeah, I've been there, Chris. And I'm not going to comment on from her standpoint, but I'm going to comment on that. So I actually left a very toxic work environment last year where I was not respected. I was actually left, I'll just give you the setting. I was left alone in a room with like 4 phones and a computer with, I dispatched EMS. I was an emergency dispatcher by myself at night from 6 p to 6 a, no help, hardly any help. And it was really, really, I felt like I wasn't taken seriously when I said that I needed that kind of help. So unfortunately, I mean, I'm sure there's other ways to go about the boundary, like talking to your supervisors about it, bringing it up to them and how you feel. As if you don't talk about it, they're not going to know. Mm-hmm. But I had to ultimately leave the company and go somewhere that was better for my mental health. That's a very like a last resort type of thing. But that's something that I went through last year, and that was, unfortunately, after trying to address my boundaries with my superiors, that was the decision I had to make for myself.
Yeah. And yeah, that's kind of where I was going to go, that ultimately it might lead to that. Like you were saying, maybe try to have a conversation first, Again, this is a hard one to know without having all the information, which is why I might say, Chris, check out that boundaries book, because again, they have a whole chapter devoted to work boundaries. So they might hit on, they might give some examples that you say, oh, I can identify with that. Let me try what they tried in that example. They really give a ton of examples.
Definitely.
Ryan, are there exercises to do? Ryan, you can try going to Therapist Aid. There are lots of worksheets. Actually, we pulled from one of the worksheets from this show.
Yes, we did.
So that's where we got a lot of our situation examples that we did.
Yeah.
And
I'll post them on Instagram, but these are actual like worksheets.
Yeah.
So if you guys ever need examples, make sure you check our Instagram out tomorrow. We'll have all of these examples and all the resources in the book on there for you.
Yep. Real easy. Can you talk about these 3 boundary types pertaining to worn environments? I'm not sure that I understand that question.
Worn,
W-O-R-N, environments.
yeah, I'm not sure what that means either.
Oh, work environments.
Work. Oh, okay.
Real easy. What I said to Chris, does that answer your question?
The book is called Boundaries. I'm sure you could probably find it on Amazon.
Caitlin? Yes, definitely on Amazon. That's where I got mine. So statistically speaking, it takes 7 times to leave an abusive relationship. Would you say it's fair to expect people who have experienced this would take longer by virtue of a situation that they will definitely take longer to establish boundaries in future relationships? I mean, trauma, yeah, is absolutely makes these things happen to us very cemented into our brain. And it makes it hard to make those changes. And I even realize that we need to make changes, right? Because sometimes trauma makes us just blame ourselves and not be able to see that, hey, we have control of certain things. So I can't say that 100% for sure, but my guess would be yes.
And if any of you guys, are having issues and it seems that you can't really figure it out on your own, I always suggest to all of my friends that you should seek professional help. This is an example of something where I think professional help would be useful, especially if you're in a situation where you might be like an Ash's situation. That was a very toxic relationship in so many ways. She could have benefited from professional help during that time. So I think it's not a bad thing to seek it.
Absolutely.
It's not.
Is pushing boundaries healthy? As far as pushing your own or pushing somebody else's? Pushing your own boundaries. Yes and no. I can see pros and cons for that. Yes, we always want to kind of challenge ourselves to, keep improving ourselves. But if it's damaging you, then you shouldn't be doing it by yourself. Like Gabby was saying, you should reach out for help, work on it together with a therapist.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty. Anyone else have any other questions before we close the show? Well, guys, I'm going to say this is the end of the show. We're wrapping it up here. Thank you for joining us. This is In It Together with Sammy and Gabby. I'm Gabby. This is Sammy. She's a licensed counselor. We do the show every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we talk about coping with emotional, social, and psychological well-being to promote self-healing. We just got done talking about boundaries with Sammy, and now I always close each show with a tarot card. Sammy, if you can stay in here while I do the tarot card, and then I'm gonna.
No, that's okay. I'm gonna exit because I'm getting ready for the. I'm gonna grab.
You're getting ready for it. All right, guys. This is a really exciting part of the show. It's kind of a little bit of comic relief after all of this important information we just went over. I pull a card out of this deck every week that is related to the topic. It's called Soul Truth by Brienne Hovey. So the point of the cards are to make you self-aware. So to take like soul-driven advice, soul-driven decisions. So last week we'd had this card. And we'll talk about the next card here in a moment, but this is last week's card. What was the last time that I danced freely? So this was a card related to music therapy we went over last week. I'm not going to read the whole card to you, but the one part of it says that dancing is a tool to ground us in the now. It triggers happiness, and it is the gateway to freedom. To become free, dance. So what I had you guys do last week in response to this card was dance for me. So me and Sammy found a bunch of you guys that agreed that you would dance for us, and I made a little compilation video. So we're really excited. We're really, really excited. Oh, hang on. Let me make sure I'm ready. Let me make sure I'm ready for this. I gotta get the music down. Alexa, play my music on Spotify. I thought I had this ready, but I guess I didn't. She didn't want to stay ready.